this stage, so some poor conditions to come for many. Meanwhile, it should be drier over towards the eastern side of the country, even drier too over towards the west, but just notice there'll be some wintry weather just around the Pacific Northwest into Western Canada. Rain, sleet and snow to come here then. We got some rain to come into Central America, southern parts of Central America, just around Nicaragua. That aside, it's fine and dry. The Caribbean looking lovely. Temperatures getting up to 27, 28 degrees, plenty of pleasant sunshine to come. Good deal of sunshine too into much of Europe, but for the southeastern corner, a return to winter. It's very cold here. There'll be more snow to come. Athens with a top temperature of 6.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
All the news, all the time. aljazeera.net/English.
If you're a Nokia user, you can download Al Jazeera's news widget from Nokia's Ovis store. The news widget, available on compatible Nokia devices, gives users quick and easy access to real-time news updates from Al Jazeera English. See the world in real time. Al Jazeera Mobile.
Reality sets in for Libya's rebels as Gaddafi forces score victories on the front lines. And opposition leaders in Libya are now asking for help to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi. Hello from me, David Foster. You're watching Al Jazeera, coming to you live from Doha. Also ahead, Gaddafi's forces appear to be concentrating their firepower on key oil towns. Egypt's new era. The country's Prime Minister Essam Sharaf appoints a new caretaker cabinet in Cairo. Trying to keep the peace in Côte d'Ivoire, we report on the clashes threatening to tear the African country apart once again. Forces loyal to the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi have struck back hard against rebel positions. Counter-offensive seems, for now, to have halted any opposition advance on the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Pro-Gaddafi forces are bombarding the oil-rich city of Ras Lanuf. One report we've heard calls it a horror. Move along the coast to Misrata, and the rebels there say they're keeping Gaddafi's forces at bay. It is the only city in the west still in opposition hands. Government's reportedly retaken control of the town of Azawiya. Now, these pictures from Libyan state television in Tripoli show Gaddafi's forces. What an incredible base it was in that area. Well, let's hear from Al Jazeera's Lawrence Lee.
The more pictures emerge of the fighting, the more it looks like a civil war. There are various front lines. This just one in the big town of Misrata. If these pictures look upsetting, they're nothing compared to the rest. Odd then that the government says it's trying not to cause too much death and destruction there. Very odd that Gaddafi himself appears entirely blind to details, like civilians or children being hurt.
We have cells that were activated, took up weapons to kill policemen, kill soldiers. There were casualties on both sides for 2 or 3 days, and weapons were stolen. Now, on both sides, the army and the police aside, the rebels, there have been at the most 100 people killed.
Out in the desert, it's obviously less important if Gaddafi's military can't shoot straight, and it has been striking how inaccurate their bombing runs have been from the air. While it's true that some weapons dumps have been destroyed, in many places the warplanes have continually missed their targets. But even if on occasion the rebels do find a way of shooting one down, air supremacy remains a huge psychological advantage for Gaddafi.
When we arrived, we didn't find any opposition because the people here are good. The people welcome us and greet us. But when we were inside, 2 Mirage planes overflew us and 1 helicopter. They wanted to shoot, but we shot them first.
All the same, if there are questions over the aptitude of the Libyan military, then the same must go for the rebel forces, whose euphoric advance was met with organised resistance they couldn't handle, and so little hospitals have been overwhelmed. It's also emerging that many of the fighters have no idea how to use their weapons and are injuring themselves. Some of these pictures suggest a desire to fight is all well and good until the reality of armed battle hits home. So with the prospect of the country tearing itself to pieces, it's hardly surprising that voices close to the regime are once again urging dialogue. The hope in this intervention on Libyan TV must have been that it sounded better than if it had come from Gaddafi.
Dear brothers and sisters, this is a chance in history. We are threatened and need to act today, to work on preparing for national dialogue and to calm the violence, so Libyans all over the country can feel safe and secure and at peace, so we can go back to school and work.
Gaddafi supporters in Tripoli might buy that argument. The east of the country might think it a trick. But as time goes on and the violence looks open-ended, it's not as though anyone else has any better ideas. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
When it comes to outside help, some of the rebel leaders have been changing their tunes. Less than 24 hours ago, we were hearing from one opposition leader that it was time for a no-fly zone to be implemented. Now, others have echoed that sentiment. The US president, though, is saying that all options are on the table, and this was his warning.
I want to send a very clear message to those who are around Colonel Gaddafi. It is their choice to make how they operate moving forward, and they will be held accountable for whatever violence continues to take place there. In the meantime, we've got NATO, as we speak, consulting in Brussels around a wide range of potential options, including potential military options, in response to the violence that continues to take place inside of Libya.
So military options are being examined, but the NATO Secretary General in the meantime has reiterated that a decision over any form of intervention is extremely complex.
If these systematic attacks against the Libyan people continue, it may amount to crime against humanity. Many people around the world would be tempted to say, let's do something to prevent this massacre against the Libyan civilian population. On the other hand, you're also right in pointing to the fact that there are a lot of sensitivities in the region as far as a foreign military intervention is concerned, or what might be considered as a foreign military intervention. And that's exactly the dilemma.
Al Jazeera has learned that a firefight between British special forces and rebel fighters broke out on Libyan soil. It was when a diplomat and members of the Special Air Service, the SAS, were captured as they landed from a helicopter in eastern Libya, a failed mission that had been authorised by the UK Foreign Minister William Hague. The men have since been released. Alan Fisher has more.
Arriving back in Malta, the failed British Special Forces mission to Libya. In the UK Parliament, the Foreign Minister said it was all a misunderstanding.
Last week, I authorised the dispatch of a small British diplomatic team to East